What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. As always, my name is Orlando Mortel and this is Mortel Dynamics. Today we're going to talk about chapter 9 on Rickson Gracie's book Breathe, Devastation. This chapter is, how do I say it, the only chapter that I have read in one sitting non-stop, because maybe it's not the most interesting, but because it's so full of emotions. It was so captivating that I just couldn't stop. It's like a 20-page chapter, and I said like, okay, I'm gonna read 10 pages, take a break and whatever, and then come back and finish the chapter. And I read it in one sitting. The chapter begins by Rickson saying that, throughout all this journey, his sons and his children in general have all been, growing up in the background, and Rickson has been so concentrated on just training and fighting and providing to his family with the money he wins in the fights, that his kids just grew so fast and one didn't notice. For example, his younger son, Kron, in 1999 was already 11. I mean, he was already a pre-adolescent. Of course, all his children had different interests. It always happens that your children doesn't always choose what you as the father are good at. His two daughters had different interests. Kron, his younger son, he was a natural at jiu-jitsu, but he was more interested in skateboarding. If we remember from the last chapter, Rickson was kind of taking a break. Hoyler was fighting instead of him because he was waiting for the Japanese to offer him more money and just another fight. Hoyler Gracie came to fight this guy called Sakuraba. This guy was good. He was good, but maybe not on the level of Rickson, of course, but he was good. What happened was that Hoyler got beat, right? And Sakuraba challenged Rickson to fight right there when he defeated Hoyler. But of course, the Japanese had other plans in mind. The Japanese wanted Rickson to fight Funaki, Masakatsu Funaki. Funaki was a very experienced fighter. The Japanese offered Rickson $1.5 million if he won that Funaki fight. When the fight started, I came in for the clinch, but Funaki hit me with an overhand right. We wound up in the corner, trading tit-for-tat punches and knees. 9 minutes into the fight, Funaki grabbed my neck and attempted a guillotine choke. I was able to drag him to the ground, but he hit me in the eye on the way down. By the time we landed on the canvas, I had no vision because the blow broke the orbital bones in my eye socket. My mind was still working properly and none of my internal gouges were redlining, so I felt I could still manage the situation. If anything, I embraced this as an opportunity to show that my decades-long winning streak was not a fluke, but a result of training and methodology. I knew the only way Funaki could beat me was by knocking me out. If today was to be my last day, so be it. I would not cry, beg, or sell my soul to survive. Funaki jumped to his feet and started kicking my legs. When I made no effort to get up, the crowd realized that I was hurt. The Japanese fans cheered every time he kicked my legs. Even though Hoyler was screaming, "Stand up! Stand up!" I took my time, breathed, and regrouped while everything boiled around me. I absorbed the kicks and tried not to touch my eye, so that my opponent wouldn't realize how bad I was hurt. I let Funaki kick my legs, hoping that my vision would return. When it did not, I resigned myself to fighting him blind. Although he kicked me more than 30 times, he never went for the kill when he had me in the crosshairs, and that was his mistake. Shortly after I accepted my blindness, some vision returned to one eye. I landed a kick to Funaki's knees that gave me the distance to stand up safely. I sensed that he was trying to rest, so I attacked with total commitment, took him back down to the mat. Once I had him on his back, he did not quit, despite there being no escape. Funaki was a true warrior. I punched him in the face more than 20 times before he turned his back. Even as I was choking him unconscious, he never tapped, but he went to sleep. Up to this point, this was Rickson's biggest fight of his life. I mean, remember when he was fighting for just like $400,000 for one fight if he won. Now he was fighting for $1.5 million. Although it was a motive to celebrate. You know, it was an exciting thing for the whole family. Rickson's daughters and Kron were going to the best private schools that California or LA or whatever could offer. You know, they were economically good, in good standing. But in that same year that Rickson won that fight, he began to have family problems that would turn critical in his life and would eventually end his career. And that was that same year Rickson had injured his knee, but at the same time Rickson learned that Rickson was a prospective member in an LA street gang. Throughout the 1990s, East Coast and West Coast rappers were at war. Rickson himself hated the East Coast. I mean, it was just an irrational hatred towards the East Coast. And suddenly, when Rickson said that he was going to leave for the East Coast, you know, Rickson was naturally concerned. I will summarize the next few pages because they are deep, they are emotional, and it was the reason I couldn't stop reading this chapter. But at the same time, I have no idea how to transmit the same emotion and ideas that he just wrote. So I'll just summarize what happened. Rickson went to New York City, right? He was just not communicating with his family and they didn't know anything about him. But at first, Rickson and his wife were fine because they saw that Rickson was using his ATM card. Right? He was using his card, he was okay, he was still okay. Suddenly he stopped using his card, so Rickson called his cousin Renzo, and Renzo had a lot of police officers that trained at Renzo's academy in New York City. What ended up happening was that they found that someone with the same description as Rickson had died in a hotel, in a hotel/motel, a cheap $10 a night hotel, motel, whatever, in New York City. Obviously, this destroyed the family. This obliterated Rickson in so many different dimensions. To the point that 3 weeks after Rickson's passing, the Japanese offered him $5 million to fight Sakuraba, the guy that had defeated Royler Gracie in one of those fights. And Rickson had to decline because for him, being there for his family, him having the time to mourn his son was much more important than money and fame and anything that came with it. Rickson later found out that Rickson was murdered in his hotel. According to the coroner's office or the medical autopsy, he died of a mix of drugs overdose like cocaine, sleeping pills, antihistamines, and just a lot of pills. But Rickson, or at least the book, doesn't give much more information on why exactly was he murdered. One can assume it was because of drugs, but you know, it doesn't explain specifically. In Rickson's words, "When I found out the truth about my son's passing, I made an unequivocal decision to walk away from the Sakuraba fight. Regrouping with my family and helping them heal was much more important to me than anything else. I had lived the Gracie ideology, toughness, stoicism, and grace under pressure my entire life. But after Rickson died, I don't know if it failed me as much as I abandoned it. I could have brought all my warrior values to bear so as to stay on my feet, but my family could not. I could have tried to keep myself crying like a child. I could have said things like God knows what he's doing, or schedule my next fighting taking my pain out on Sakuraba. I could have numbered myself with drugs and alcohol. I felt that by suppressing my emotions, I would be creating a mask that might make me look strong but would have made me numb inside. My most important responsibility was to my family." He says that although our marriage had been strained for many years, Kim and I came together with love and acceptance for each other in the aftermath of Rickson's death. We put our differences aside and focused on our children. Yes, even though they came together for that, it didn't mean that their marriage was okay. This chapter has a lot of big news in just one chapter. Rickson was just trying to get over Hudson's death, right? He got to build like it's not a temple, but just like a tree house where he could go and meditate and bring some incense. And he had a picture of Hudson, and he went to that house to meditate. He had an experience with a blue jay where, as the days passed, the bird got more confident and with around Rickson, to the point that they were like friends, they were like family. He had like a bird family living in that house, and that just helped Rickson not get over this death, but accept this death and just grow as a man and grow as a new man, because he had to realize and accept that his life would never be the same. Gracie, his younger son, took his brother's death to get more into jiu-jitsu and do everything for his brother. He was more into skateboarding at first, but after his brother's death, proposed to himself that he would be the greatest Gracie in his family for his brother. Kron then came to win a lot of tournaments, a lot of fighting, and one very emotional point that is described in the book is that when Kron, as a purple and brown belt, he won 51 straight matches by submission. After every fight, he would open his gi and kiss an image of Hudson that he had sewn inside his gi. He lost his first match as a black belt, but went on to win every title there was to win in Jiu-Jitsu before going on to fight MMA. As this is not big enough, Helio Gracie died in his sleep in 2009 at the age of 95. When Helio died, Rickson was in Europe with Kron for the European Jiu-Jitsu Championship. And the day Helio died, Kron represented his grandfather on the mat as Helio would have liked. He won both of his matches by submission, and after he won the European title, he kissed the picture of Hudson as always and bowed to the giant mural of Helio the tournament organizers put up to commemorate his life. By the time Helio died, he and Rickson had already put aside the differences they had created with the UFC controversy. Rickson knew that Helio was always proud of him. Rickson describes in the book that he could see that his father always saw him, even when he retired, as the champion of the family. And the chapter actually ends by Rickson remembering that even though he retired, Helio told him, "How are you feeling? How's the training been going? Nobody can kick your ass." And with that, the chapter ends. There are a few pictures of Kron and Rickson Gracie. I'll put it up on the video. There's a video of Kawan, Rickson, and Kaoling, Rickson's two daughters. And the last picture is Kron Rickson with a portrait of Helio Gracie. With that, guys, I'll leave you. This was a very emotional chapter once you read it, but let's see what we can find in the next chapter, which will be rebirth. So with that, I'll see you in the next chapter. Bye.